In this episode of Otherside Chats, I share with you what happened to me in one particular clearing where I let my guard down and wore my heart on my sleeve. Years ago, I was working as a professional medium. I was doing these clearings and I wanted more. I thought it would be really interesting to be on a ghost hunting team. And in some of these episodes, you've heard me talk about the team that I was with. They were great, fantastic people. But in my search for the team, initially, I came across a lot of ghost hunting teams. This was 10, 15 years ago that wanted nothing to do with a medium. And for some of them, it made them feel, non-legit. For some of them, they didn't believe in mediumship at all, which is kind of ironic because you're ghost hunting, but a lot of them didn't want anything to do with a medium. Well, I found one and it was run by a woman. She said, sure, come on down. The next one we're going to do is here in Gloucester on this date. Come on down. We'll see what you pick up. And I said, okay. And I explained to her, I work best if you don't tell me anything. That's literally how I work best, how my intuition, and how I can increase my accuracy with my intuition. And she said, okay. So I said, I'm just going to show up. Don't tell me anything. It's that joke. Don't feed the medium. And she was on board. I get there. She meets me out front and immediately starts to tell me the entire history of the building, the spiritual activity that's been happening to the people that live there. And I said to her again, I said, actually, can we talk about this after I do a walkthrough and tell you what I pick up? Because if you give me a lot of stuff to think about, I'm not going to be able to tap in as accurately to my intuition as I normally would. So the less I know, remember we talked, she was like, yeah, okay. And she was nice enough, but we went in there and it was like the second room that we were in. We walk in the room and she said, do you hear it? Do you hear the baby crying? Everyone says they hear a baby crying in here. And I went, okay, this isn't going to work. And I was polite and I picked up what I could pick up, but I left that night knowing it's useless. It's absolutely useless. You could bring anyone in there whose intuition is honed or not honed and say, do you hear the baby crying? And then it's suggestive. Do you know what I mean? So even if I did intuitively hear a baby cry, I can't rely on that. And I felt like that wasn't helping the situation or finding out what was really going on spiritually. So I didn't go back to that team, but I did find another team and they were incredible. And I talked about this earlier in one of the episodes. I mean, they didn't tell me anything. They didn't even tell me the location. I would have to drive late at night to a town. And then when I got there, then they'd give me the address. It was fantastic. There was such great standards set up that it really made a huge difference. And then I was able to make a difference in some of the reporting that was happening. But the ghost hunting thing, it's just a lot of fun. It's great. You get to hang out with your group. Sometimes we have, scary moments and we can laugh about them and things like that. But sometimes you get some really great evidence. So we were on another ghost hunt, me and this team, and I went downstairs and I was in the lower level and I saw a little boy in spirit form. Now, mind you, at this time, my two boys were about the same age as this young man. So this is going to be a story about how you can't let your emotions drive you in crossing over work because it can hurt you. So I see this little boy and the mommy in me goes, oh, like I instantly thought, oh, you poor thing. What are you doing here? Why are you stuck? Now mind you, I know people that connect with children that are stuck in their transition quite a bit. It's actually a little bit more on the rare side that I connect with kids I tend to connect with more adults that are stuck. That's sort of the vibration that I connect in with. But I saw this little boy and my heart just went, oh, he's needs to go home. We need to get him home as soon as possible. And so I walked up to him and I said, what's going on? Are you okay? Can I help you? And he said, I'm scared, I'm lost, I'm this, and my heart is just breaking. And I'm seeing this little boy and I have completely let down my guard, because the squishy mom in me just saw a little boy that I deemed needed help. So he came a little bit closer. So now he was standing probably about 2 feet in front of me, and I could see him. He was mostly transparent, but I could see him. And just in that wanting to just wrap my arms around this poor little kid and tell him it's going to be okay. We can go home. I'm going to help you. In doing that, I knelt down on one knee. So I was eye to eye with him, and I was leaning toward him. My physical body was leaning toward him, most likely because that's what my heart was doing. It wasn't intentional, but I was about a foot away from him, and I saw his face jet at my face and then disappear. And I felt as if I had been bit on the cheek. Now I am a mom, so I do know what it feels like to get bit by a kid. And that's exactly what it felt like. And it startled me. And then instantly I felt cold inside. My alerts were up. I knew I was not, safe and I let my guard down. I knew it. It like snapped me right out of it. So I went from this, oh, you sweet little thing, to getting, a psychic attack and feeling that sensation of being bit. And I pulled it together really quick. What what I did? GCP, ground clear, protect, boom, I put a grid around myself, et cetera, et cetera. And then I scanned the room, and there was no one else there. And this little boy wasn't there for a moment. And I said to my guide, hey, what's my next step here? I know that I let my guard down. This little kid just took advantage of it and psychically tried to injure me. So it's not really an injury. I didn't have teeth marks or anything like that. It was more your nervous system reminding you what that feels like. That's more of what it's like when you have a physical moment. So it's a physical message that's coming through. It's just being delivered by someone else that doesn't have your best interest in mind. So I said to my guide, what's the next step here? How can I handle this? I'll go into that stern, unconditional, loving mom and get him to cross over. And my guide said, you need to get him to come back here to this spot. And I said, okay. And I asked for someone. I'm like, anyone, is there anyone connected to this young man on the other side that can come through, that can talk to me? Is there anyone there that can help me, that's connected, can help me? You are on that side, I'm on this one. We can both help this young man, this little boy. And his mom came through. Now, mom had died earlier. They were wearing clothing that was, it had to be 60, 80, 100-year-old clothing. These were not in current times. And she came through, she had passed away and she had crossed over, and she couldn't reach him. She said, I'm trying to reach him. And I said, I understand that. I'm trying to get him closer to you so we can both help with this. And she said, you have to be very careful because he's dangerous. And I said, well, what can you tell me what happened? And it was fascinating to me how she told me the story. She said it's super matter of fact. This is when I knew this was not current day news. This was clearly something that happened so long ago that it just unfolded the way it did, because this is not something that would, currently be going on. But she said, he's dangerous, he's unsafe, he hurts things. So we ended up having to, kill him. And I'm a mom looking at this mom saying, you killed your son? And she said, well, I didn't, but we ended up having to, end it. And then I said, so he was doing horrible things, and so you ended his life. And she's like, we had to, his brain didn't work. And so she tried, and I knew she had been crossed over. So this wasn't a story. It wasn't a lie coming out of her. And that's also partially why she said it so matter of fact, is she didn't have tons of linear time emotional attachments to it any longer. It was what happened in that lifetime when she was there with him. And it was stunning to me. Absolutely stunning. Because you don't wake up on a random Thursday and think, oh yeah, I'm going to see a little boy in spirit form who was killed by, his elders because he was psychotic back in, I don't know, 1880 or something. I don't know. But it was a little bit of a stunner. So I'm giggling because I'm going back to that moment, standing there in this room, kind of dumbfounded as to how to approach this, because I had connected with people who crossed over, who had committed murder or who had been murdered. These different situations I had come across, or just injured by a parent, or had gone through abuse, different things like this. But this was a first when it came to a parent that, and I don't believe that she was the one that ended his life. I believe it was done maybe under some weird, like the town physician or something like this, but it was said so clearly to me that his brain wasn't okay. He was very dangerous, and this is what we had to do. But it shook me. So I had to reground, center and focus. I've got a mom standing in front of me who's crossed over, telling me what happened simply in a previous lifetime and not reacting to it. So that was a little weird too, but it made sense. And then I have this young boy who's now out of the room. So I asked the mom to stand a little distance away from me, because she had been trying to connect with this boy to get him to cross over to finish that lifetime cycle. But she had no luck and she couldn't get close to him. So I said, why don't you and I stand apart and see if I can get close to him, and then we'll see what we can do to connect him. And that's exactly what happened. We stood 20 feet apart, and I closed my eyes and I pictured him standing in front of me again. I am GCP. I got GCP going on, and I'm safe and it's okay. So I can be with this kid in the space that he needs me to be with him. And I felt his anger first, and then I started to see him visually, but it was very faded. And I said, I have to just do one thing. And he looked at me like, confused. And I remember reaching my hand out and grabbing this like black energy that was on him and pulling it off of him. And then with my other hand, I remember imagining just white light coming out of that hand and filling that little boy's heart up. And when I did that, his eyes got wide for a second, and then he went, okay. And then he dissipated. And when they just sort of disappear in front of me, that's when they cross over for me. It's a kicker. I know I've mentioned this before. I would love if there was like a flashing sign that said successful, it happened, you're all done, but it doesn't work that way for me. When they do cross over, they just sort of dissipate and disappear. And I do check in with my guide, did they cross over? And he said, yes, he did. But in essence, there was this really dark energy that was holding on to him. I'm sure this energy was on him when he was alive, causing him to do very, very harmful things to people. And that dark energy had to come off. I replaced it as quickly as I could with a whole bunch of light energy, with the intent of raising his vibration even just a little bit, because I knew if I could raise it even just a little, he would start to go through that transition process and cross over. And that's what happened. So I had the intent of the mom, the understanding of the mom. I knew how I had to ground myself, and that there was going to need to be another step, which was pulling off of that dark energy, filling up with that light energy, and then allowing this boy to really go on his way. It was quite an intense day. It was a great teaching moment and a great reminder for me to always step into each of these things with a fresh set of eyes, and don't let your emotions play with you, because a spirit that is stuck can present to you what they want to present to you. They can show you what they want to show you. They can pull at your heartstrings. And are you really certain in each of these situations that you're going to be okay? It's always worth taking another look, taking a double check. Is there something that I should be leery of, or something that I should be on my guard about in this situation? It's always worth doing that. I would say the majority of the cases that you run into somebody who is in their transition and working to cross over, It's not that they're vicious or harmful or going to harm you. Most people are lost. Most people are concerned about the transition and what's happening to them. But on a rare occasion, you're going to run into somebody that isn't going to play nice. And that's what happened on this day. But in the end, this was someone's little boy, as we heard. The mom came through. In the end, this was a soul who had to come down, live in a 9-year-old's body, and walk through the process of harming others in such a way, and then give the, how do I want to say that? Give the experience to another living person to have to end this boy's life. I just said that sentence, and everything in me says there's no have to, but that's what happened. And that person had that experience, that whole lifetime unfolded for all of them. But in the end, little boy needed to go home because ghosts are people too.
This podcast is brought to you by the SAGE Method, the most comprehensive and down-to-earth intuitive development training available. Is this your year? Is it finally your time to increase your intuition, bring in more abundance, and experience the bliss you deserve? If yes, then join thousands of students across the world for a 7-week journey to uncover your natural, beautiful, and strong intuition. Visit us at thesagemethod.com for more information.